we'd like to welcome to the Alexander County Board of Commissioners meeting, March 6, 2023. Chairman Ronnie Reese will lead us in our invocation, and Vice Chairman Josh Lell will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Father, we come to you today thanking for the blessings that we've had of this day and Lord, for all the good things you do for us. Pray for each person that's here tonight. You give them a safe journey here. And Lord, you've done that. Pray you take us back home the same way. And Lord, I just ask you to be with the ones that protect us each day, our fire department, rescue, sheriff's department, highway patrol, all those who put their life on the line for us each day. Help us as we make decisions to move Alexander County forward. Lord, and pray for Mr. French's family that's here tonight. I know there's been a missed spot there. Lord, just thank you for the time that he gave to the county, the good things he done for us, and he's truly missed here tonight. And we ask all these in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag.
Hey, stand up.
Hey, stand the flag up. Just hold it. There we go.
It don't really fit the stand. We need to buy one.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You probably want to lean it back.
Just lean it back.
Larry.
Lean it back.
You want to go first on that?
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever you want to do.
We have some special guests with us this evening. The family
Whatever.
of our
Doesn't matter to me.
former county manager, Rick French, that was with the county for numerous years, a rarity these days. We have asked them here, we have a proclamation and a key to the county, and Commissioner Mr. Yoder will handle from this point.
I'm going to step down here if you don't mind. Kathy and family, if y'all would, y'all step up here, please. I'd greatly appreciate it. This is in recognition of Rick French and his family. The Alexander County Board of Commissioners hereby presents this key to the county upon the family of Rick French in recognition of his many years of dedication, sacrifice, and loyalty to Alexander County, North Carolina. Presented March the 6th, 2023. As most of you know, Rick served for a long time as the county manager. A lot of time away from his family. He traveled about, he'd go to different places. He was involved in the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, Western Piedmont Council of Governments, Via Health, and he took part in just about everything that this county has done for the last several years. He was an intimate part of Alexander County. His dedication and hard work has brought us to where we are today. And I can't say enough good things about Rick. Rick had a way of bringing people together, settling disputes, making things work, finding a way to get the money to make the things that the county commissioner would like to see implemented, make them happen. He took care of his employees, he looked after them, and from talking to a lot of the employees, they truly respected Mr. Rick French. He loved to run, he enjoyed Rocky Face, and you'll hear more about that here in just a minute, all the things that Rick did in the proclamation. But on behalf of the commissioners and the citizens of this county, I'd like to present this to the family of Mr. Rick French and thank you for his service. Thank you all for your contributions, because without you all, there's no way he could continue to do the things that he did and spend a lot of time away from home. And I know he's away from home a lot because I spent a lot of time with him traveling. So I appreciate everything he's done, and I appreciate the support of this family for Alexander County and the accomplishments that Mr. French made. Here you go, young lady. Thank you. God bless you.
If the family would, please stay up here and come to this area right here and kind of, the reason I want you to do that is out of respect for Rick, I would like to read this proclamation from the chair, for the chairman of the Board of Commissioners. Proclamation honoring the life of Rick French, Alexander County Manager. Whereas Alexander County and its citizens lost a true public servant, Rick French, on December the 24th, 2022, and whereas Rick began his career in local government in 1976 and served in several town, city, and county manager roles until April 1999, when he accepted the position of Alexander County Manager. And whereas, as Alexander County Manager, Rick was instrumental in countless projects with a positive impact on the community, including the installation of many miles of water and sewer lines, tap fee discounts for citizens, expansion of broadband services, and increased funding to schools and fire departments. And whereas Rick played a major role in the purchase of property for the Alexander Correctional Institution, as well as the CVCC Alexander Center for Education and Applied Technology Center, expansion of the Alexander Industrial Park, and development of the Alexander County Services Center. And whereas, under Rick's leadership, Alexander County built a new animal shelter as well as a new law enforcement and detention center, partnered with the school system on the construction of a 1,000-seat auditorium, established satellite branches for the library and senior center, added a dental clinic at the health department, and constructed Courthouse Park featuring a popular splash pad and performance stage. However, Rick was most proud of Rocky Face Mountain Recreational Area and its infamous Stairway to Heaven Trail, which is part of the Vertical Mile Challenge. And whereas he carried out his duties with optimism and care and sought to make Alexander County a better place to live, work, and play. Now therefore it be resolved that the members of the Alexander County Board of Commissioners hereby wish to honor the life of Mr. Rick French, recognize his impressive 46-year career in local government, and extend our sincerest condolences to his family. This the 6th day of March 2023, and signed by your Board of Commissioners. Fondest memory I had of Rick was visiting the tomb of the unknown soldier in Washington. Truly a great event. Here you go to the family, and we so appreciate your dad and your husband. Does all the commissioners want to come up here for a photo? Sure.
Stand with us, come on.
Yeah, come on,
Yes.
Come on, Dane. Come on. Dane, you can be in the paper.
Kathy, the little folder thing's laying on the podium, but you need to put that back in it. The thing that I had it in, it's laying on the podium for you if you want it. Thank you.
Does any commissioners have anything for commissioners' report this evening?
Mr. Chairman, I'll share something briefly. Just to let everybody know, we are currently, and actually the board members that are assigned to this would be the chairman and myself, but we are working on the new comprehensive plan for Alexander County, which involves planning, zoning, and just kind of future land use, what we, and basically what we're trying to do with that, the board is made up of community members, and 2 commissioners, and obviously our planning and zoning department. But basically what we are doing is formulating a plan per state regulation, that essentially tries to determine the best potential future land use for all the property in Alexander County, whether it be farmland, industrial, commercial, residential, whatever. And basically just wanted to let you know, one thing that we are currently working on is a survey. And when that survey is completed, surveys are one of those things that, even if they offer you $2 to spend 15 minutes to do that, a lot of times we don't take the time to do it. But this survey, I can promise you, there's a lot of thought going into it. There's a lot of concern going into it, because basically we want to hear what the citizens of Alexander County, we want to hear what you would like to see. And it's going to talk about, like I say, land use, obviously, what you feel are the most important aspects, what are the important aspects of Alexander County for the future? Do you want to see lots of growth, no growth, just all kinds of things. And basically why I want to say this is, when that survey comes out, I would really encourage you or ask you to participate in that survey. I think the planning department's working really hard on trying to make it reasonable, where we're not, it shouldn't take you too much time. But that information that we can get as a committee from these surveys will shape, what will shape the future of Alexander County when it pertains to land use, zoning, where we'd like to see commercial, where we'd like to see residential, where we'd like to see industrial, where we'd like to see, this protected, or, farmlands and such as that. But like I say, it is actually a required event or an required activity, per state statute, for, to go along with our county zone, planning and zoning. But just want to let you know that that's going on. We have some great community member volunteers, or committee members. And hopefully, and this is not a short process, we're looking at a year or so for it to be completely finished, but the surveys will go out, in a reasonable amount of time. And then obviously we'll have to take that information and do the best we can with it. So just wanted to mention that to you. Thank you.
Any other commissioners with a report? Moving into public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, adoption of agenda. Have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion the agenda be adopted as presented.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimously approved. So, all right, going into public comment. Do we have a Carissa Miller here? Okay. Okay. I've got a set of rules I have to read over before the public comment, Carissa, so bear with me. The public comment period is intended to allow the Board of Commissioners an opportunity to listen to citizens' comments and concerns It is not a time for the board to discuss issues or answer impromptu questions. A time period of 15 minutes has been established for public comment at the beginning of the first regular meeting in each month. Length of comment for each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Comments are to be directed to the board as a whole and not to an individual member. Citizens will be expected to be civil, courteous in their language, and limit comments to issues of public concern. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate county officials or staff and may be scheduled for a future agenda. Ms. Miller, if you don't mind to step to the podium and adjust that microphone to fit you. And if you would, when you first get up there, state your first and last name, please.
Sorry.
And
Carissa
the floor
Miller.
is yours.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Carissa Miller. I live at 1505 Ritchie Road in Taylorsville. I'm here to speak to you tonight about a revenue-neutral tax rate and consideration of adopting a 4-year reappraisal cycle. Each year, counties are required to calculate the revenue-neutral tax rate or rate to bring in the same amount as last year, but they do not have to abide by this rate. Our 2022 county tax rate is 0.79 cents per $100 valuation. I realize that we are not a high-growth county, but we are way out of line in comparison to Catawba at 0.570 and Iredell at 0.5375. In fact, we are higher than any of our other surrounding counties. One of the things you might soon be hearing from residents after the notices went out is, "This number is ridiculous. How did they come up with this value for my house?" North Carolina law requires counties to reappraise all real property once every 8 years, but it also allows counties to advance the reappraisal process to less than 8 years. Operating on an 8-year cycle can create more opportunities for inequities to grow and usually leads to a much larger and unpredictable change to property values. I believe that a 4-year cycle would help address some of the sticker shock that people will experience and could be used as an opportunity to educate the public on the reappraisal process. These past few years have been some of the saddest times in a very sad couple of years for many of my neighbors. On my street alone, there have been 2 deaths due to complications from COVID-19. A year later, our neighbors 2 doors down from us were in Hawaii, but their vacation ended when they received news that their son died unexpectedly. There was no autopsy performed, and they still don't have answers. Further in our subdivision, a self-employed couple has worked hard to build their woodworking business from the ground up, only to watch it crumble back down to the ground. We also have young families who are now struggling with debt because they are trying to put food on the table and buy their kids new tennis shoes for school. Many of my neighbors live on a fixed income and on a tight budget. These are some of the real hardships that Alexander County residents, as well as my neighbors, whom I consider friends, face each day. Meanwhile, the $100 bill is the new $20, and the price of eggs is $4 a dozen, and gas hovers around $3 a gallon. Like many people, I have not received a raise in several years. If the millage rate is left unchanged, these families and their kids will lose hope in our county and the people who make decisions. As a board, I want to actively encourage you to listen to our community's needs because it can have a domino effect. Raising a person's taxes is one of the biggest responsibilities that you make. It's also a decision that I hope you will not take lightly. In closing, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and also thank the county for their tremendous leadership they've shown during the pandemic.
Thank you, Carissa.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to move right along to public hearing, rezoning petition RZ 23-01 Bethlehem Partners LLC. Brian Burgess will be speaking. Do I have a motion to open public hearing?
Make a motion to open public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Before you tonight is rezoning 2301. This is owned by Bethlehem Partners LLC. The agents for that are in the audience tonight. Mr. Finkel and Jean are here if you guys have questions for them. This is approximately 8.83 acres. It's on Satellite Road, but it's right off of Rink Dam Road, not too far away from the shopping center. They're requesting that we rezone from R20 to highway commercial. Generally speaking, and I'll make this as quick as possible, I'm happy to answer questions, but it's consistent with the comprehensive plan we have in place. If you guys see the red hatched corridor on the southwest corner of the county, that little part that goes up Rink Dam Road is just on this property. Additionally, it's considered a commercial area in the Bethlehem Small Area Plan that was adopted a few years ago. The Alexander County Planning and Zoning Commission met on February 9th of 2023. During the public hearing, we had some folks show up and express concerns. A lot of those dealt with traffic, stormwater, lighting, and public safety. Upon closing that public hearing, the Planning Commission acknowledged the petition's consistency with the Alexander County Comprehensive Plan, and based off of those findings, they recommended a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. I'm happy to answer any other questions, though, if you have any.
Any commissioner have any questions or?
Well, I'll just say, I'm very familiar with this property. You know, they kidding that I live, what is it, the great state of Bethlehem? But anyway, you know, these guys kid me. But, I mean, I'm very familiar with exactly where this property is. I remember when it was a very dilapidated mobile home park, where there was a lot of crime. Sheriff's Department spent a lot of resources for a long period of time. You know, to kind of give you a little history. The developer of Wittenberg Springs subdivision on Rink Dam Road, Homestead Shook LLC, bought that property. Basically cleaned it up, closed down the mobile home park, cleaned it up because they, you know, they were concerned it was affecting their ability to develop Wittenberg Springs subdivision. It's a great piece of property, great location. And I'm just gonna be honest, my only concern personally, because I mean, I've looked into this prior to the meeting, my only concern is highway commercial is a very wide open, you know, it's a very, very wide open and largely encompassing zoning district. And, I mean, you know, like I say, I'm not against development in any way, shape, or form. I mean, and I think you're very aware of that, because we've had several conversations. But with our current zoning, highway commercial could not be, you know, cannot be used for any type of housing.
Correct.
Be it apartments, townhomes, condos, so, you know, I mean, it would be a commercial use, which, like I say, I'm not opposed to any development, because that's just how I am. But, you know, if planning board thinks it's, in line with what, you know, with what was established in the previous comprehensive plan, you know, then I personally don't see any issue. You know, and this is a bad thing to say, guys, I'd love to know what you might do, you know? That's what, you know, and don't get me wrong, because I actually have some experience with commercial development, you know, and it'd be great, you know, as a commissioner, so we don't get kickback from people. You know, it's one of those, man, I'd love to know what you know, what would work out well and what you're thinking, but I know that's not the nature of the business, and that's not how it works.
I'm happy to step
Yeah.
out of the way if folks have public comment or if the applicant wants to.
Yeah, and as I say, I mean,
Speak to
if any of you guys, I mean, have anything, I don't know that anybody else has any
You guys wanna
qualms
speak?
or issues. And I really, like I say, I really don't have issues with it either. I just, I just know there is currently a lot of traffic right there. I have a house in construction on the corner of Wittenberg Springs Drive and Rink Dam Road right now. Is one of my construction jobs, so I mean, and I built quite a few houses in Wittenberg Springs. And I built a couple houses on the little street, not Satellite, but the little street right beside it that turns back to the left. I mean, I'm very familiar, with that area. And there is a lot of traffic there. But that's something that we're gonna have to deal with in the future anyway, which I'm not, that's the DOT's problem.
So let me ask,
Not the county's problem.
does the applicant mind to share what's going there, or would like to keep that to themselves at the moment?
I'll let them speak for themselves.
Good evening. My name's Charlie Finkel. This is Gene Stoker. Both of us live in Bethlehem. That's number one. So we drive by that property every day. We're not going to put anything up there that demeans or diminishes the property values of the area because we live there. I'm a retired attorney. I'm a guardian ad litem volunteer here in Alexander County.
Good for you.
I play golf, ride my bicycle. I've been a pilot for 55 years and do a lot of stuff out at the airport. Gene, I'll let him speak for himself. But we're not set in concrete right now. We have been in discussions with the fire department, and they're very interested, if you look at the diagram, the 1 acre corner that's on the northwest side, they're very interested in acquiring that parcel to put a satellite station up. We don't know for sure whether that's gonna happen. There's a lot of variables that go into that, but that's one use that may occur there. We've been talking amongst ourselves about self-storage units for larger things like boats or RVs, and interestingly enough, I don't know if it's zoned commercial or not, but right at the corner of Dogwood Lane there and Rink Dam.
It is not zoned for
Yeah.
that.
Well, he's keeping, it says big sign in front of there that says, Lake Hickory Storage or whatever, boats.
Right.
And he's storing stuff there. Rubner's behind us is commercial for their landscaping. We've talked about self-storage. We've talked about other things. We don't know for sure, but we can't do anything until the zoning is changed. And we talked to a lot of concerned citizens, well, not a lot, but several concerned citizens at the planning committee meeting, and I think we addressed their concerns, and the committee voted unanimously in favor of the zoning change, and all I can say is we're not set in stone, but whatever we do is gonna be nice, because we live there. Gene?
Hi, my name's Gene Stoker. I moved down here 12 years ago from upstate New York, not New York City. It looks just like Hickory, the area. And I was an engineering and automation manager for a large global aluminum company, the Ford F-150, it's aluminum. Our company made the aluminum for that truck, several other vehicles, stuff like that. I was on all the different committees in upstate New York, and I was most recently the HOA president of Harbortown. Okay, I just relinquished that in January because I got so many other things that we're taking on right now. As Charlie had said, we had talked about self-storage. I owned a self-storage facility that was behind Walmart, where Lowe's, Walmart, and Sam's Club are. There was a facility behind that. It was voted the nicest self-storage in Hickory. Spotless, clean. I hold a very high regard to make sure things are done right, okay? We're looking at a few things. We're trying to make some decisions on it. We are looking to do some self-storage, some larger stuff. Nobody has that, okay? Everybody has the little units, but there's, being close to the lake, there's boat storage, camper storage, things like that that could be very useful, benefit the community, bring in some more tax revenue. We also looked at some areas of doing, and we can talk about that, senior house, single-story senior patio homes and a development gated community. If that's the case and we can't do that there, then we may have to rezone a portion of it. And we may have to come back and say, this is what we'd like to do. We see a real benefit where the seniors could be in there. You know, a pool, pavilion, dog park, community gardens, walking trails all through there. It'd be beautiful. It'd be really, really pretty, nice place. So I hated to see that land just sit there. We saw a lot of potential in it. And Charlie and I are both pretty avid outdoor people working on stuff. So we want to benefit the community. We were looking at an urgent care, to put an urgent care in Bethlehem. That's on our agenda as well at some point. This isn't the right property for that. But yeah, whatever we end up doing, and we haven't got everything set in stone yet, it will be nice. It will be high quality. It will be clean. It will meet the expectations of all the landowners. We did talk about putting self-storage in the back part of it, the lower part. In our last meeting, a lot of residents were concerned about lighting being near residential. So I said, fine, we talked about it, and we decided we'd move that up to Rink Dam Road, up where there is more light, more noise, stuff like that. And then what we do in the back, if we ever decide to put in a senior development back there, that would be quieter, you know, it fits more into the neighborhood. So, yeah, we definitely took in a lot of the comments we got, and so.
Yeah, one other thing is, we're open to the community, what the community needs. We're always listening to people, and obviously we want to try and make a profit on this, but we also want to make Bethlehem nice. And if anybody has any ideas of what should go there, we're open.
Yeah.
Nothing's set in stone.
Appreciate your time, fellas.
Sounds
Yes, sir.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
for listening.
Any commissioner have anything?
Anybody else want to?
Anyone else out in the audience want to speak? Do I have a motion to close public hearing rezoning petition RZ 23-01?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Do I have a motion that we approve rezoning of RZ 23-01?
Make a motion to approve as stated in the position.
Second.
All in favor?
Approved.
Let's see. Moving along, we've got progress report on National Register listing of downtown Taylorsville Historic District. Duncan Kavanaugh, am I saying that correctly? And, yes. No, say your name.
I'm Clay Griffith with Acme Preservation.
Oh, I skipped down a line, I'm sorry. Clay Griffin, I'm sorry. My apologies, sir. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much.
You want to borrow my glasses, Chairman?
I need glasses.
So yes, as introduced, I'm Clay Griffith with Acme Preservation. This is Josie Ward with Foreground Consulting. And we're the consultants that y'all hired in November to prepare a National Register Historic District for downtown Taylorsville. We're gonna have the next slide. I know y'all were, I guess, maybe about a year ago, y'all had a presentation about the survey that was done downtown from a member of the State Historic Preservation Office, and which led to a study list application or study list district being presented and approved, indicating that there appeared to be a potentially eligible historic district in downtown Taylorsville. Alexander County currently only has 2 properties listed in the National Register. The Lucas Mansion and then the Roller Mill, which is just outside of the downtown district, but hopefully this will be the third. Where we are, since we've started work in November, the National Register nominations composed of several pieces. There's the official federal form that we have to fill out. There's maps and photographs, visual documentation that goes with that. And then there's the two main components of it, which were Section 7, Section 8. That's more for our use than y'all's. But Section 7 is the inventory, which is a physical description of all the resources that are within the district. And then Section 8 is sort of the background, the statement of significance, and those components. Next slide. So one of the important aspects is where to start with this, and what the boundaries might be. And so what was looked at and presented is the study list limits are essentially that there's a good 6 blocks there, from the courthouse to, I'm sure y'all have different terms for what these areas are called, but to the intersection of East Main and East Main Drive, or to the hotel, from the courthouse to the hotel. And that sort of cohesive section of downtown is what we've looked at. And we did explore, should it include more things? Should those boundaries extend? And when we start looking at what the period of significance would be, and then beyond that, the sort of density of historic resources gets to be a little strained, and so we do feel comfortable that the boundaries that are shown there in red are what will that will be the limit. Yeah. Next slide. So for the Section 7, which is what the part we're working on currently, is building inventory, and so this will again it will describe downtown and all the resources that are contained within the district. And for each building, we'll have the name, the address, date of construction, date of alteration, its contributing or non-contributing status, pretty thorough description of its physical appearance, and then a brief history of owners, occupants, businesses that have been there, if it's a commercial structure. Next slide. And sort of to go along with that, there's a whole section of photographs of each building. Even though the descriptions are very much current appearance, we do have to count for changes to the buildings. And one of our methods of doing this is old maps versus current aerials, and examining what's still there, things that have continued to be, things that are lost, but that factors into our building inventory.
Slide, please. After we've completed the building inventory, which we're nearly complete with, we will get started on Section 8 of the nomination form, which is the historic context. So in that, we'll be crafting a narrative of the history of the development of Taylorsville, and placing its architecture in context, both countywide and statewide. To do this sorts of research, we of course look to historic newspapers, specifically the Taylorsville Times. Can I have the next slide, please? Our other primary sources are deeds of course, which help not only track history of ownership, but also details about the use of the building. Sometimes there are details about adjacencies. We look at plats, which are often associated with deeds, which can give us information about buildings that are no longer on site. It can give us information about changes that have been made to buildings, outbuildings that may or may not still be on site. And of course, census records, which give us demographic information. It's really inarticulate data, but the more of that detail that we have, the more we can get a sense of who was living in downtown Taylorsville versus in the outskirts, what their professions were, what their races were, et cetera. It helps us to build a picture of downtown Taylorsville. Can I have the next slide, please? Oh, unfortunately, so prepare to be blown away. We had a brief clip from a rather incredible 1939 film of downtown Taylorsville, and we have the citation here if anyone is interested. It's a 30-minute film, all sorts of little short clips with images of downtown Taylorsville. And what that provides for us is this snapshot of the buildings in the district in 1939. That's sort of a baseline for us in the absence of, oh, there's one shot from it. But in the absence of other forms of evidence, we have at least that to tell us what buildings stood and what condition they were in 1939.
Yeah, unfortunately, the little clip didn't work. Back one, please.
That's right.
Because one of the things in that film that you can pick up on is how much the area we're looking at was really the dynamic commercial center of town. Most of the views are in those 6 blocks where we're looking, or those, essentially 3 blocks both sides of the street, and on Center Street and around the courthouse. And then some of the longer range views looking to the west on Main Avenue. You can see how quickly it becomes residential beyond what's essentially the park behind the courthouse now. I mean, it very, what we're looking at as downtown was very much the commercial core of downtown. I mean, there obviously was more around it, but that was the happening spot. And we rely a lot on historic maps, historic photographs, old aerials to try and track changes for a variety of reasons. The changes are important in determining integrity, which is one of the key components of what makes something eligible, in addition to its significant either architecture or historical associations. Buildings, or in this case, the district, must also possess integrity, meaning that it is able to represent the period of significance for which it, or the period for which it is significant. And so this kind of give you a little view here. I think this is 1942 snowstorm, or early 40s. But we can, looking at this block, you get the sense of the scale, the 2-story buildings, the 1-story, the church on the corner. Next slide. And this is now 50 years after that one, and we've still got the 2-story building on the corner, the 1-story group of buildings that's now the Times office, the church on the corner. Starting to see some changes, but in essence, the fabric of downtown, the massing, the scale, the rhythm of the buildings, the setbacks, all of that remains intact. We also get some good details about, what windows were there, what the transoms looked like. Next slide. Before they get covered up, and hopefully those elements are still under there. But that was very helpful in giving us a sense of what the integrity of the district is. And
And next slide, please. The most important thing for our district is to track the sum of the parts, not individual buildings. But we'll also be looking closely at the integrity of individual buildings. So we wanted to look with you at just a couple that our research, we've already found subtle changes that we're looking closely at. So Do you all remember the church prior to the main change that you see between these two pictures, 1976 and present day? That front gable is a brand-new reconstruction, or not brand new, but a new reconstruction that's quite sympathetic. But it did involve entirely new material, reorientation of the entrance, closure of one of the original side entrances. So these are the types of changes that we'll track over time as we're looking at assessing the integrity of individual buildings and the district as a whole. Can I see the next slide, please? This is another brief example. According to a 1924 map, this building served as a post office. There were a lot of post offices in Alexander County and in Taylorsville. It moved around quite a bit before it stabilized. Its longest tenure was as Carson's hardware store. And this photo in 1976 shows us the building prior to a rather extreme change in the facade. So some things are consistent. We can still see the cast iron framing. We can still see the window openings are the same in the upper level, but a lot has changed at the ground level. The recessed entry has been filled in. There's weatherboard veneer over all of that coursed brick, et cetera. So when we are evaluating the integrity of an individual building like this, we will take into account changes that are reversible, like siding that's over brick, versus changes that are permanent, like the removal of historic windows and doors. And I'll move to Clay for the last.
So that's, go ahead and give us the next slide. So that's, let's say, we're currently finishing up the Section 7, the inventory part. That is, we're scheduled to be finished with that at the end of March. And then we'll start putting together Section 8, all the background, or the significance and context, with the ultimate goal of having a draft nomination to the State Historic Preservation Office by the 1st of June. We're very much on track to do that. Last slide's a little bit of just, what the benefits of listing are. Certainly, listing in the National Register is largely honorary. It's the recognition of historic and significant, and architecturally significant places. One of the main, and hopefully encourages property owners to maintain their buildings and preserve their historic integrity. There is a nice financial carrot through the historic rehabilitation tax credits, which is a program through the Park Service, administered through the State Historic Preservation Office. There's a lot more information through their website, which if you go to the main page and then down the main menu to that little red oval, take you to a lot of their stuff, their fact sheets and information about the tax credits. But that does provide a good incentive for redevelopment, rehabilitation, in a way that maintains and hopefully preserves historic character, which we're certainly hopeful that, next slide please, hopeful will be the case in downtown Taylorsville. We are, again, certainly in the middle of working on it, will be for the next several months. If anybody has information about downtown buildings that they would like to share, any old photographs, anything that, and this can be from the public as well, we're available and would certainly love to hear, again, information related to past businesses, past owners, changes to buildings, and certainly any documentation of the downtown area. So, do y'all have any questions?
I think it's exciting. It's nice to see some of those things the way they happen. I know I was talking to Connie Kincaid, and I know that the place that we're getting ready to remodel on Main Street, and I don't remember the address, but it's right below the Smithy's building there. It was interesting to hear about the ceiling on the inside, what they found when they started looking. And it wasn't anything like anybody thought it was, and it was still there. It's still there. And, that's an exciting thing, you know, to, and to bring the history back. I mean, we're an older town and county, and I think it's interesting to see how these things have taken place, and a lot of them have just kept them the same. And some of them have changed them to meet the new century. But this committee that you've been working with, these folks have done an outstanding job. It's a very diverse committee. They're very interesting in preserving and trying to make Alexander County the best to be. And the best part's about the tax things for some of the folks that own these buildings, the incentives that they could receive in order to maintain and to make sure they stay the way they are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the tax credit program's been very successful across the state. We're from Asheville, which has done tremendous things. I mean, and certainly many towns, Greensboro, Charlotte, Winston-Salem. It would be wonderful to have Taylorsville join that group and have those incentives available to downtown property owners. So.
Have y'all reached out to the Ancestry Association in downtown?
Is that the one in the jail?
Yes.
We have not.
They tend to have some photos and things like that, so that might be a good avenue for you.
We do need to reach out to them. They have limited hours, which is one of the.
They do.
One of the problems. But we've spent a good bit of time down at the library, in their local history room, and some good collection of things there too. So, but yes, we do need to get to the.
Mr. Griffin, Ms. Ward, appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Alexander County Digital Access Plan 2023, and now it would be Duncan Kavanaugh.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. Well, before you tonight is the Alexander County, it's a draft of the Alexander County Digital Access Plan, and it's less of a plan and kind of more of a prioritized list, just because you know what our goal here is to make sure that the county, if it so chooses to apply for grants coming up from the North Carolina Office of, or North Carolina Division of Information Technology, would be eligible to do that. So we started work on this back in 2022. We got a small grant from NC State, about $11,000 to make these plans for each of our 4 counties. And basically, what we're trying to do is, like I said, you know, we want to make sure that our counties are eligible for these grants when they come out, if they so choose to apply for them. So we kicked off the process, excuse me, in fall of 2022. We had a stakeholders meeting for folks from around the region and from Alexander County, and they all came and provided input on the state of digital access and all of their counties. So we had stakeholders from local governments, we had from school systems, community colleges, libraries, economic development folks, and of course, community nonprofits all came and participated in that and gave us some good guidance on what's available right now and what might be some good ideas to potentially make available in the future. Let's go a couple slides ahead here. Let's stop right there. You can see the plan mission and the plan vision right there. This plan isn't just about infrastructure. It's not about, you know, necessarily cables in the ground or towers or things like that, but that's a part of it. Also, another part of it is to make sure that people in the community that don't necessarily that may have trouble getting on, or don't necessarily have the skills to get on, or haven't learned how to do it in the first place, all have some kind of instruction or some kind of ability to do that, to get on. And so it's a little bit different that way. It's not just all focused on infrastructure. So let's go a couple slides ahead here. All right, let's go one more. Okay, so it's basically comprised of the 7 sections. The first one here is the current state of digital inclusion. And this kind of gets back to what I was saying before with the stakeholders that came to our office and participated in that half-day workshop. We make a list here of all the different things that are available for folks as far as being able to get on the internet. So, for example, are there programs, are there computers available at the library? We talk about the one-to-one laptop program from the schools. We talk about the tech support that's available through the school system. And we talk about the senior centers, all of these individual places where folks can go to get on, or in some cases, get a little bit of help as far as being able to get on and navigate. Maybe learn how to pay bills, or do some searches, or work on job skills, things like that. So that's a pretty good list of that. We reached out to a lot of different stakeholders beyond that first meeting that we had. Worked a lot with the folks at EDC and made some phone calls to the folks in the school systems as well, and other places around the county. Let's go ahead, a couple slides here. All right, let's keep going here. Okay, the next section is where we're talking about ongoing efforts to address availability and accessibility. And of course, we've got the information in there about the great grant that the county got not too long ago, just over $1 million for the internet service there over in the eastern part of the county. So that's quite a feather in the cap, and makes this plan, I think, a lot stronger going forward if it does come to applying for grant applications. Let's go ahead, a couple more slides here. There we go, that's good. So for broadband availability, it's always kind of it's a tough topic to get your arms around, I think, because the data out there isn't really all that good. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, does have some information about where broadband is available, but the information that we've got in these maps here, and these were provided by the North Carolina Office of, or Department of Information Technology. They're not as accurate as we'd like them to be. It's just the way that a couple of things are going on here. First of all, the census counts individual census tracts throughout the county. They'll say that they have broadband access. They'll say that the entire tract has broadband access if only one house within that tract has access. So right there, it's not necessarily as accurate as we'd like it to be, but it's the best data that we've got. And then the other thing on here is that the FCC's own definition of what adequate broadband isn't really in sync with what modern internet users need. So if you got a lot of people working from home, or if you got a lot of people doing telehealth, or if you got people doing schoolwork or having live video, it can cause real problems, and you'd actually need a lot more than what the FCC's definition is. So it gives us kind of a baseline to look at, and we can see here on this map that the areas in the county that are kind of clear, and you can see the different names of the communities on there, that has average broadband availability, but where you see it going into red and into pink, those areas have below average broadband availability. So next slide. All right, let's keep going. The next section is where we're talking about a little bit more about broadband adoption potential, and that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier. It's tough to measure, whether or not folks would necessarily decide to get on broadband if they had it. But it turns out that there is some information and some things that folks looked at here in the census from the North Carolina Department of Information Technology. And the way they came up with these maps is they're looking at these individual census tracts, and these are different parts of the county. And what they look at is poverty rates, households that don't have internet access right now, households with no computer devices, households with a broadband subscription right now, households with children, limited English population, persons with a disability, people over age 65, teleworkers, and the population with a bachelor's degree or higher. So if we just took one of those measures, and one of them, maybe the easiest to understand is, you know, if a household doesn't have a computer device in it right now, how likely would they be to enroll in or sign up for broadband if it became available? And, you know, so in those areas where we see those reds and those pinks, it's basically saying that adoption potential could be lower in those different census tracts. It's a little bit confusing, but they're trying to get at, what they're trying to get at here is what's the percentage of population in each of those census tracts that might be who could maybe take advantage of a program that could be available to them to give them some training to get onto the internet and adopt it, et cetera. So that's what those maps are all about. Let's go ahead a couple slides here. Yeah. Okay, then we get to the recommendations in the plan, and what we've done here is we've kind of broken these out. And you'll notice that if you've had a chance to look through it, these recommendations are actually pretty broad. And we did that on purpose. It's because the North Carolina Department of Information Technology hasn't yet come out with its grant offerings yet. So what we wanted to do was make sure that these were as broad as possible so that the county could take advantage of, you know, just about whichever type of project they might want to get involved with once those grant applications come out. So you can see we've got these broken out into policy recommendations, and here we're talking about, you know, working with local legislators or folks at the state level to encourage the FCC to update those broadband maps, because that's really the only thing that we have to go on. But you can kind of read through some of those other recommendations, and the next one is funding recommendations, and we come on down to outreach, awareness, and adoption recommendations. And there again, we're talking a little bit about, are there programs that the county may want to develop, or are there existing programs that the county has, like, say, for example, lending out computers to folks, or training programs to help people learn a little bit more about how they can get on the internet. Those recommendations in that section relate to that idea there. So if we go up one more page here, availability and accessibility recommendations, you know, a whole range of different options there that are available, from expanding public Wi-Fi access at county or municipal buildings to you know, working to expand access to wireless hotspots that maybe people could check out from the library and take home. Again, it's just a plan, and you know, like I said, maybe more of a prioritized list, but the goal here is to, if there's a project that the county would like to go after, that it's already been identified in a broad way in this plan, and the county would have the ability to do so. Okay, so there's the one aspect of funding that's coming from the North Carolina Department of Information Technology. That's one. We already talked about that. But if we go to the next slide, you can see that we've identified a lot of the different funding opportunities from other sources. So this is the most up-to-date information out there, and it can change over time, but there are quite a few different programs from quite a few different agencies that either have offered grant funding in the past or may have it coming down the pike. So we wanted to be sure to list all that information in case the county wanted to apply not only to NCDIT, the Department of Information Technology, but maybe potentially any of these other agencies too. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that that continues on there. And there are several programs actually that are coming out from NCDIT, and those are listed there that could relate to any, a lot of different types of broadband projects. So we wanted to be sure to make sure that that's as comprehensive as possible. And even listing down there at the bottom, a nonprofit organization that sells used laptops and other devices at steeply discounted prices for folks. And beyond that, we have, if you go one more page, yep, still got some more. So there are lots of different opportunities to apply for other grants, from other grant sources too. And one more slide. Okay, so at the end, we've got two appendices, and it gives the detailed data of the different measures that we were talking about, from broadband availability at a census tract level, and also broadband adoption potential at a census tract level. So if there are any questions about how those maps were derived by NCDOT, I can give some basic information about how those were arrived at based on the categories that they looked at the census and through the FCC. But that's where all the data is in the back, and I'd be open to any questions that you have.
So basically what they're saying, the broadband in our county is just basically average.
Yeah, it's, and again, that's always kind of a tough one to get your arms around, because, I work with numbers and data a lot, and when I see that they're basing and saying that that an entire census tract has quality broadband service, if only one house in that census tract has broadband service, that doesn't make sense to me, but that's the way they calculate it. So,
I
there's-
agree
there's-
with you. That makes no sense to me either.
Yeah.
Well, and even where there is, even in the more dense portions of Alexander County, a lady that works with, a lady in her family a lady that works with me, she and her family have not had broadband. Now, there's broadband on the street. It goes by their house, but their driveway is probably 1,000 feet. It's, 1,500 feet. And she and her neighbor, or their family, the two families that use that little driveway just went together and paid about $12,000 to have, for Spectrum to run a line so they could have broadband.
Yep. Yep.
And, it's at the street. And, but like I say, between their family and the neighbors, they felt it was important enough to do that because, they have two high school kids that, and just like at my house, I can look at we have a large family, but I can look at our router, on my app on my phone, and there are times there are 15 devices connected. Because we have, 4 or 5 iPads. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 iPhones, computer. Our TV comes in. Our TV, we do not have, we have high-speed internet, but, our TV is internet-based. And all this kind of stuff. And and that's the way of the world. Our watches are, not mine, but, my older children, their watches are attached to the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Apple watches are attached to Wi-Fi, or Google watches, or Samsung watches, or, and this is crazy, but Tag Heuer is making $5,000 watches that are, that hook the internet. And I would assume Rolex probably will at some point, which is crazy to me. But, you know, so, and my point being, where this family lives is not in the middle of nowhere. You know, they're not in rural Alexander County.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's regardless of what we do what we try to do as a board to service the rural portions of the county that don't have access, there's still there's still gonna be holes in the bucket. I mean, there's still gonna be places that people aren't that far away, but, you know, I mean, you know, I think at my house, we have 500 gig internet speed. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not cheap, but that's honestly, I mean, almost what we have to have. And, you know, you can't get by with it. I mean, my kids, I have two daughters, both in college online. I have a daughter that's full-time at Arizona State University, and I have one that's at CVCC, and all their classes are online. They do all their work online. I mean, my daughter's at there. I mean, I pay Arizona State University full tuition, just like my daughter was there, but she's at our house. You know, and if we don't have internet, I mean, if we didn't have it, we couldn't do that. And so, you know, and I'm looking at this information, I'm looking at the census tracts, and I'm like, what? No offense, but who put that stuff together? Because some of the stuff that I was reading makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the state can do what the state wants to do, and they can spend lots and lots of money, but, you know, it's, and looking at this, I mean, even looking at the census data, it's crazy.
Yeah.
If you know Alexander County and how things are broken up and whatnot, so we just do the best we can.
I wish we had better data, you know, and that's one of the recommendations in the plan is, of course, to support folks at the state level that are trying to put pressure on the FCC to get some better maps. You know, so that's one part of it. And, you know, for areas that you know, that have a hard time getting on, if they're students, you know, one other recommendation in the plan is to, you know, potentially look at, you know, maybe we need, you know, devices that can be checked out from the library or Wi-Fi hotspots that could be used from the library. And of course, that would all be grant funded if the county decided to do something like that. But I agree, the data is not good.
Mr. Kavanaugh, we appreciate your time. Thanks for the presentation, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Valia Health PowerPoint presentation from Zach Shepard. If you would, come forward.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you tonight. Before I get started, I just wanted to echo the comments about Rick. He was a highly regarded member of our board, well-liked guy, and I know he will be missed. And we send our condolences to his family. And just wanted to say that. What I have for you tonight is a brief update. As part of our commitment to our boards of commissioners, we want to make sure we're continuously giving you updates, making sure you have the latest information and things that are going on at our organization. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, so a lot of this is stuff that you may have heard before. It may be a refresher for you, and then we'll have some updates as well. So we are a publicly funded managed care organization that is focused on mental health, substance use, intellectual developmental disabilities, and traumatic brain injury services. Our goal, successfully evolve in the healthcare system by embracing innovation, adapting to a changing environment, and maximizing resources for the long-term benefit of the people and communities we serve. Okay, so today, this is what VIA looks like. We are the local management entity managed care organization. And we, like I said, we're responsible for the management and oversight of the public system of mental health developmental disabilities and substance use services at the community level. We're also a prepaid inpatient health plan that was set forth in federal Medicaid managed care rules. Okay, next slide. So, all that to say that there are some significant changes that have happened in our organization, and there are significant changes to come. And even since I prepared this presentation, there have been changes. In December of 2022, we launched our tailored care management, integrated care. So that was in response to us being awarded a tailored plan with NCDHHS. That tailored plan was slated to begin April 2023, but we just received word last week that the state will be holding that launch until October of this year. So this stating April 2023 is no longer valid. That is going to be October of 2023. So as a tailored plan, we will be serving special populations. That includes traumatic brain injury and our innovations waiver, waitlist members, and non-Medicaid behavioral health, IDD, and TBI services. So here's just an overview of our catchment area. We are 31 counties, and we are split up into 4 regions, and Alexander County sits in our Region 3 currently. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is currently what our benefit plans look like. We have basically the 2 health plans. We have the waiver, the 1915B waiver. This allows us to kind of offer additional benefits to manage these funds and enroll members in managed care. Then the 1915C innovations waiver. And then also our contract to manage non-Medicaid services. And none of those that we currently operate include NC Health Choice or the 0 to 3 age range or physical health and pharmacy. Okay, next slide. All right. So future state, what we will be looking like once tailored plan is launched, and right now that's slated for October, so we'll see if that date still holds. So we will be branding our tailored plan as VIA Total Care. This will be integrated physical, pharmacy, behavioral health, IDD, TBI, and LTSS plan. And that will be including the 0 to 3 age range for those who meet tailored plan eligibility. So that plan will basically encompass person's care completely, all around. And then we will also be offering our Division of Health Benefits contract, which will be the Medicaid Direct, and that will include Medicaid and NC Health Choice, carved out of managed care that will not be eligible for the tailored plan. And again, that will include all aspects of care, physical health, pharmacy, and this will be a much larger population than our tailored plan population. Okay, next slide. All right, I wanted to go over with you just some of the things that we're doing right now with our provider staffing stabilization, and that's just to ensure that we are providing as much support as we possibly can to our providers to make sure that they can adequately meet the needs of our members. So we aim to track staffing and services at all of our comprehensive care centers. And this is, we've seen a lot of staffing issues across the board with our providers, but especially at our comprehensive care centers. We're looking to keep our finger on the pulse with that. We're working to develop additional strategies to support our providers and working with our Provider Advisory Council and also working with community organizations. So currently, we are, our priorities with our provider network stabilization is supporting those providers that are offering crisis services, emergency walk-in services, and those providers that are unable to provide contracted services due to staffing workforce, workforce shortages. So our strategies include, first and foremost, a lot of enhanced rates for our providers, and that is really focused on making sure that our mobile crisis and facility-based crisis services have what they need, as well as our walk-in centers in rural communities, and for all of our mental health and IDD providers. We've also executed retro Medicaid payments and reconfigured contracts, and that's an ongoing pursuit, is reconfiguring contracts so that our contracted providers can move around funding to make sure that they're making it work for their organization. Okay, next slide. Also, expanding the use of telemedicine, improving our communication, continuing to provide COVID-19 approved in lieu of services, removing prior authorization approvals, working with our school-based behavioral health services providers, engaging county government resources, and supporting Appendix K flexibilities for IDD providers. Okay, any questions? I know I ran through that rather quickly, but if you've got questions, I'm happy to answer. If not, if you have questions for me down the road, feel free to reach out.
Good report. Thank you for what you provide for Alexander County.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I'd like to call up County Attorney Ben Falconberry in regards to a resolution by the County of Alexander authorizing execution of opioid settlements.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Tonight, I present to you a resolution which would provide Chairman Finkel with signing authority to enter settlements against 3 opioid distributors and 2 additional opioid manufacturers. And it would also approve a supplement agreement for additional funds between the state of North Carolina and Alexander County. That supplemental agreement would piggyback on the agreement from the first wave of settlements entered into last year. As you well know, the citizens of Alexander County are no strangers to the effects of the opioid crisis gripping our nation. All of us have seen the effects on either family members or friends or loved ones in our community who have been crippled by their addictions. These addictions lead to families being torn apart for a number of reasons, that being financial crisis, crime and subsequent incarceration, abandonment of families, and most tragically, death by overdose. In Alexander County alone, from January 1st of 2022 until Friday of last week, calls to 911 for overdose assistance tallied 107. I'd like to thank Greg Foster for that information, as he provided that to me last week.
What was those dates again?
January 1st of 2022 until Friday.
Okay.
Thanks to the timely response of our well-trained emergency services personnel, and the vast majority of those calls, thankfully, did not result in death. However, those who survive and their families continue to need assistance, as even an overdose looking death in the eye is not enough to overcome addiction for many. There are many representatives in the room tonight from county agencies, including EMS, the Department of Social Services and the Health Department, Fire and Rescue and Law Enforcement that have dedicated their careers to helping this very issue, and we thank you. We are now faced with an opportunity to provide resources to those departments and those individuals and families in this county to help address this opioid epidemic on the front line of our community and help stem the tide of these types of tragedies. Recently, the Attorney General's Office, joining with state AGs across the nation, were able to negotiate a second settlement agreement with 3 pharmaceutical distributors, those being Walgreens, Walmart, and CVS, and 2 additional manufacturers, Allergan and Teva. And as you may recall from the last settlement between the big 3, McKesson, Cardinal, and AmerisourceBergen, as well as Johnson & Johnson, those payments began last year, and with yearly payments to continue for at least 15 years. This will piggyback again on that agreement with yearly payments from these additional defendants once the settlement is closed. Those payments will hopefully begin in the second half of this year. The attached resolution is presented for approval tonight to join in the settlement with all 100 counties and additional municipalities. Again, it will give signatory authority to Chairman Pennell to join in the settlement and also adopt the supplemental agreement. I'd like to read the resolution for the record and then ask each of you to consider it carefully, and then I would ask that you adopt the resolution. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas the opioid overdose epidemic has taken the lives of more than 32,000 North Carolinians between the years 2000 and 2021, whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has compounded the opioid overdose crisis, increasing levels of drug misuse, addiction, and overdose death. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates the total economic burden of prescription opioid misuse alone in the United States is $78.5 billion a year, including the cost of health care, lost productivity, addiction treatment, and criminal justice involvement. And whereas certain counties and municipalities in North Carolina joined with thousands of local governments across the country to file lawsuits against opioid manufacturers, pharmaceutical distribution companies, and chain drugstores to hold those companies accountable for their misconduct. And whereas settlements have been reached in litigation against Walmart Incorporated, Teva Pharmaceutical Industries Limited, Allergan Finance, LLC, Allergan Limited, CVS Health Corporation, CVS Pharmacy Incorporated, and Walgreens Company, as well as their subsidiaries, affiliates, officers, and directors named in these settlements. And whereas representatives of local North Carolina governments, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and the North Carolina Department of Justice have negotiated and prepared a supplemental agreement for additional funds to provide for the equitable distribution of the proceeds of these settlements. And whereas by joining the settlements and approving the additional agreement, the state and local governments maximize North Carolina's share of opioid settlement funds to ensure the needed resources reach communities as quickly, effectively, and directly as possible. And whereas it is advantageous to all North Carolinians for local governments, including Alexander County and its residents, to sign onto the settlements and the supplemental agreement and demonstrate solidarity in response to the opioid overdose crisis, and to maximize the share of opioid settlement funds received both in the state and this county to help abate the harm. And whereas the supplemental agreement directs substantial resources over multiple years to local governments on the front lines of the opioid overdose epidemic, while ensuring that these resources are used in an effective way to address the crisis. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Alexander County hereby authorizes the interim county manager to execute all documents necessary to enter into opioid settlement agreements with the defendants, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Allergan, and Teva, to execute the supplemental agreement and to provide such documents to Rubris, the implementation administrator. Thank you.
Thank you, there's no numbers associated with opioid crisis that is not staggering. If you're paying attention, the very first line, 2000 to 2021, to put that in perspective, 32,000 lives have ceased in North Carolina. Well, that's almost the population of our county. Does anybody have anything they'd like to comment on? Or?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution as read.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Next, we have on the agenda, let me pull it out, a request for a referendum during the 2024 election allowing voters to choose the candidacy filing method for the Alexander County Board of Education. This was brought in front of the commissioners in another form as a resolution a few years ago and was turned down. However, Representative Elmore has, under discussion, changed the resolution over to a referendum, meaning this: if the Board of Commissioners approve this tonight, it doesn't mean that the partisan or the nonpartisan will switch over to partisan immediately. It simply means that it will be taken to the General Assembly, and if approved there, then at election time in 2024, the citizens of Alexander County, or I should say the qualified voters of Alexander County, will vote for or against this referendum. So, being in line with democracy, I love things to go to our folks. Any commissioner have any comments before we make a motion?
I just echo that, I would just echo that I'm always in favor of allowing the like you said, the registered voters, but the citizens of the county or town or state or nation to make decisions for themselves. And that's what this would allow them to do.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the referendum for 2024 election for partisan or nonpartisan school board.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. No opposed? Approved. Let's see. Next, we have Clerk Jamie Starnes to read the budget ordinances, amendments 44 through 52.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 44 is the budget for the estimated cost of abatement for 2 blighted properties. Demolition and abatement for an abandoned house is estimated at $10,000. Trash cleanup for another property is estimated at $5,000. Number 45 is to increase the Health Department budget for additional federal grant funds from the Special Supplement Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children, and also to increase the Health Department budget for additional federal grant funds from the project grants and cooperative agreements for tuberculosis control programs. Number 46 is to increase the DSS budget for home and community care block grants, additional funding allocation, and increase in local match requirement for housing and home improvement projects. Number 47, to increase the landfill closure budget for $20,000 for corrective action evaluation report and $5,000 for compliance boundary issues. The solid waste fund will transfer $25,000 to the landfill closure fund to provide revenue to cover these expenses. It will also decrease the budget for the landfill closure fund interest revenue based on year-to-date actual results. Number 48 is the budget for the closeout of the Soil and Water Emergency Watershed Protection Grant Project. $4,750 of the state grant revenue award was not needed for the EWP project, but it can be used toward the alternate state emergency stream debris removal project. 49 is to increase the budget due to the $4,750 left over after the closeout of the Soil and Water Emergency Watershed Protection Project. The state will allow the leftover grant funds to be used for this stream debris removal grant project. Number 50 is to adjust the 911 communications budget for pay increases as approved by the Board of Commissioners. The increase in the salaries expense budget also requires increases in the FICA expense and retirement expense budgets. These increases will be offset by the use of 911 Communications Department contingency funds and group insurance funds that are available within the department. This will result in a net increase of $0 in the expenditures for the general fund. To adjust the Sheriff's Office budget for pay increases as approved by the Board of Commissioners, the increases in the salaries expense budget also requires increases in the FICA expense and retirement expense budgets. These increases will be offset by the use of Sheriff's Office Department contingency funds and group insurance funds that are available within the department, and this will result in a net increase of $0 in the expenditures for the general fund. Number 52 is to adjust the detention center budget for pay increases as approved by the Board of Commissioners. The increase in the salaries expense budget also requires increases in the FICA expense and retirement expense budgets. In addition, the group insurance line item will be increased to cover costs for the remainder of the budget year. These increases will be offset by the use of detention center department contingency funds and other funds that are available within the department and will result in a net increase of $0 in expenditures in the general fund.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve budget order amendments 44 through 52.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I love the fact that we, and it wasn't me, but that we are able to make some much-needed pay increases that are netting our county zero additional expense based on moving a little money that's already there. And I just think that's
A good job.
That's a good job. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just I just think that's kudos to those involved.
Did I have a second down there?
Yes.
All in favor? Approved. Clerk Jamie Starnes, Board of Appointments and Reappointments.
We have 4 appointments. One is to appoint Christy Harrington to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council for 2 years, appoint David Murphy to the Library Board of Trustees for 3 years, appoint Billy Walker to the Animal Control Advisory Board. This is to fulfill the unexpired term of Leanne Wisnant, which will end September 2023, and then also appoint Joey Price to the Planning and Zoning Commission for 3 years.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve appointments as read.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Commissioners, you've had your consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda as in our packet.
Second.
All in favor? At this time, we will conclude the Board of Commissioners meeting and transition over into the Board of County Commissioners Consolidated Human Services Board meeting. So now would be a great time if you wanted to leave.
Okay. Guess I got this.
People's leaving.
That is,
I'd like to see.
she's from Bethlehem. I can't even think of her name. She goes to First Baptist. She's a super person. She's super. I can't think of her name.
I didn't know the
She's on the,
two boys that wanted that property rezoned. I mean, I didn't know, they live in my neighborhood.
but she's on the, historic
They're gonna put a
committee.
All right, at this time, we'll consider ourselves seated in the Consolidated Human Services Board meeting. First up will be Billy Walker, Health Director.
Good evening. I am here tonight to discuss some of our annual training and just our information on our community health assessment. And so the first slide, I'm just gonna, you already know that we got reaccredited with honors, but we really didn't get the plaque until November the 18th. So I just wanted to let you know that, and that we are forging ahead with 2026. So next slide, just our current vacancies. Those have changed since I submitted this to you last week. So we have a licensed clinical social worker that we've offered the position to, so we're just waiting on that. We've also added a MOA opening and posted the health educator position due to vacancies there. Environmental health, we're still looking for an environmental health specialist. The whole state is trying to fill those positions, so working hard, trying to even get interns to come and work with our environmental health personnel. Committee updates, we are working hard with our Substance Abuse Coalition. We're talking about areas to maybe utilize some of the opioid settlement funds to assist with this. Our Healthy Alexandrians Coalition is also assisting us with community health assessment. Next slide. So we're going to talk about some situational reports with you guys tonight, and then trying to be as brief as possible. So just bear with us because it's a lot of information. We're going to go over our community health assessment. We're going to go over the integrated preparedness plan, some renovations that's occurring, our annual board training for y'all as our board, and then fees, and then what's coming. I'm going to let Mallory Chapman discuss the community health assessment. She has worked diligently in the absence of our health educator on completing this assessment that's required every 4 years.
Okay, so total surveys completed, we had 564. 471 of those were completed online. 93 of those were paper copies that we manually entered. 39 of those could not be used because some of those responses did not live in Alexander County. And so we based all of this data off of the 525 surveys from respondents that did live in Alexander County, as well as those focus groups. We had 3 focus groups: our virtual medical surveillance community, child collaborative, and our senior center. Alexander County is ranked number 39 out of 100 counties in North Carolina, and that ranking is based off of health outcomes. Health outcomes represent how healthy our county is right now, and the length of life and quality of life as well. And so you can see from least healthy to healthiest where we rank, and our health factors as well represent things that we can modify and improve the length and quality of life for residents. You can see where we rank there from least healthy to healthiest. And our county currently has 37,441 people living here, citizens. 19.6% are below 18, 20.9% are 65 and older, and non-Hispanic whites are 86.6%, non-Hispanic blacks 5.7%, and 49% are female. And so we're going to dive deeper into our community health assessment demographics. Gender, 76% that completed this assessment were female, and 23% were male. You can see the race and ethnicity on the right. 91% were white, 3% Hispanic, 2% African American, and so on and so forth. And that is based on the total 525 surveys. Age groups, the largest age group we had participate were 40 to 44. All of the 15 to 19 age group we did by hand, and we went up to the CDC center at the top up there, and we handed out surveys, and that's how we were able to collect that population, because we did not have any data from them, and what they think is different than what our 40 to 44-year-olds think is different than what our 85 and older think. So we really wanted to capture as many age groups as possible when we did this. Zip code, 71% 28681, which is Taylorsville. 15% were from Hidnite, 6% from Stony Point, and 4% from Bethlehem. Affordability of care, our focus areas, affordability of care 58%, access to care 55%, depression and mental health 30%, and overweight and obesity was 25%. We really want to focus on these areas and try to improve these as much as possible, and that's based off of our feedback from our population. Diving into deeper, affordability of care, full-time employment status, 58%, retired 18%, and part-time 8%, and unemployed 9%. You can see who has health care coverage, private insurance 64%, Medicare and Medicaid. 1% of people who responded said that they did not qualify for insurance, and 3% of that cannot afford insurance. And then your total household income before taxes, you can see there we really are lacking information from the poverty area and getting some of that information as well. So access to care, 94% said that they drive their own vehicle, 4% ride with a friend, 0.38 do not know, and 0.38 use the greenway. And we ask a question of what prevents you from seeking health care. 62% said nothing. The share of cost is too high, 14%. Insurance doesn't cover the care that they need, 6%, and so on and so forth. Seeking medical care outside of the county, a lot of services are needed, and we don't offer those services here in the county. And so 52% said that they need those services that we do not offer here currently.
Can I stop you right there? What would be an example of that service that's not being offered?
We don't have a pediatrician. A lot of parents, have to take their kid to the doctor, and we don't offer that here. We don't see kids.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but, family practitioners can see children from birth to, I hate to say that, but,
Yeah, they don't specialize in
Right,
pediatrician,
right,
pediatrics,
right.
so we do lack in that area.
Well,
Also,
sure.
obstetricians, we don't have those in this county as well.
largely because there's no hospital.
Yep.
There's nowhere to have a baby.
Go ahead.
So diving deeper
Living
into
room.
the data,
Bathtub.
depression and mental health, 20% of residents stated that they struggle with mental health issues and depression. There is affordability issues. You see a counselor, and, some people can't afford to pay for that. And we do have limited counseling and mental health resources here in Alexander County. Depression and mental health, we asked in our survey, how many days out of the past 30 was your mental health not good? And as you can see, a good portion said none, 22% said 1 to 2 days, 3 to 7 days, 18%, and 8 to 14 days, 9%. Participants, we asked them if they knew where to find individual or family counseling, and most people said no. Some said yes, some are unsure, and, some didn't answer. And there's some said they weren't available. Diving deeper into overweight and obesity, 34.48% of residents stated that they had that condition, followed by high blood pressure, followed by high cholesterol and diabetes, and that all falls into that overweight and obesity category. How many days out of the past 30 days was your physical health not good? 46% said none, 1 to 2 days, 25%, 15% said 3 to 7 days, 4% said 8 to 14 days, and so on and so forth from that. And we ask how many did you engage in exercise at least 30 minutes during a normal work week? This percentage isn't going to equal 100 because we did let them pick multiple categories of no's, and that is the most that you see there. A lot of people said that there were no safe spaces to exercise, it was too high, people didn't have childcare after work to exercise, and so on and so forth from the no's. And 52% said yes, that they did, and then so on and so forth from there. And we asked how much fruits and vegetables do you consume daily? 1 to 2 servings, 54% said that they consumed 1 to 2 servings, 20% 3 to 4, 18% less than 1, and then 4.95%, 5 or more. So we narrowed down our areas of improvement. We had 10, and we narrowed those down to our top 6, which is a 25% or greater in response. Drug and alcohol prevention at 38%, anxiety and stress management 33%, childcare and parenting 29%, exercising and fitness 27%, managing weight 26%, and elder care is 26%. And some of the focus groups that we are working with to improve these areas are our Substance Use Coalition, Healthy Alexandrians, Child Collaborative, and Senior Center. And so we grouped these areas of improvement. Mental health, we were working with Child Collaborative Focus Group and the Substance Use Disorder Coalition. And we put anxiety and stress and drug and alcohol prevention under there. We feel like those go hand in hand. You know, you have stress, and that relates to drug and alcohol issues and so on and so forth. Healthy living, we put with Healthy Alexandrians, exercise and fitness and managing weight under there, child care and parenting with our Child Collaborative Focus Group, and our elder care with our Senior Center Focus Group. County goals based off of areas of improvement. So we sat down with our Healthy Alexandrians and asked them, what do you want to see? What can we do in order to improve these areas in our county? And here's what we came up with. So mental health and depression, we're planning to work with the Substance Use Coalition to improve mental health struggles by providing public awareness through education within the schools and community and assisting other agencies with access to care, possibly adding trained staff in specific high-risk areas. Healthy living, we are planning to investigate areas within the county, example, churches, parks, schools, etc., that already exist and have space available for the public to use with little to no cost in each of those communities. And this we'll use that to advertise local and safe areas within the community and just work with what we already have available and make our citizens aware of that. Child care and parenting, we participate in the Child Health Collaborative to bring improvements to the child care and parenting issues. This team, we're currently working on their strategic plan for improvements in these counties in Alexander County. And our elder care, we're gonna work with the Senior Center to survey specific needs within this population, and we're also gonna work with the board to see what future plans are for improving access to care within our community. Then I'll turn it over to Daniel Fox.
Any questions on the CHA?
That's some fun stuff.
Good evening. I'll try to be quick as well. I'm Daniel Fox, EM coordinator for the county. Public health and Alexander EM, we've got to go through a integrated preparedness planning workshop. We've been working on this for probably going over 6 months now. We meeting with various people and to try to get our preparedness priorities taken care of. This is kind of our steps that we've taken so far. We're in that established preparedness priorities area now and working on our multi-year schedule. The next one. The purpose, this is something that Department of Homeland Security and FEMA have put together for us to continue to improve. One of the first steps was doing our threat, hazard, and risk assessment, which we finished up at the end of last year. And now we're working on our preparedness priorities by doing this, doing the IPPWs and developing a plan. Here are the 32 core capabilities that emergency management focuses on. They're spread out over 5 mission areas. This is kind of, we'll take a few of these and focus on them this year. Just to kind of give you an idea of all the little areas that we're trying to work through and tackle. Next slide. Again, this is a process just set up by Department of Homeland Security and FEMA, kind of build that foundation to prepare, respond, recover, and mitigate from hazards. Next slide. And the purpose of this is to fill these 4 steps. We have worked through surveys to identify the preparedness priority factors, which I'm going to show those results too. And then our goal tonight is to establish those preparedness priorities, get your input on those core capabilities, your focus areas for us in emergency management, but also public health, and to fulfill the grant requirements that we have to fill. Next one. This is our first integrated preparedness plan. The goal moving forward is to take the plan we create now, make it a living document where we continually update it year after year with training, preparedness priorities after an event, kind of determine our focus areas, how we can improve, how we can better serve the citizens of Alexander County. So this is a grant requirement for Mallory as a preparedness coordinator and myself as the EM coordinator. We've partnered together doing a survey. We started out with a community survey. We surveyed the epidemiology team with public health, the local emergency planning committee, LEPC, and the fire chiefs. Our focus areas, as you can see there, threat hazards and risk, capability improvement areas, and then how we can tackle those improvement areas. This is our survey results for threat hazards and risk. The light blue is through the online surveys, the orange through the EPI team, the gray is LEPC, and then the yellow was the fire chief group. As you can see there, go ahead into the next one. We went ahead and ranked those. It was a little easier to read. Flooding, tornadoes, winter weather, pandemic, and large fires are the main focus areas for our threat hazards and risk, according to those that participated in the survey. Go to the next one. We also asked everyone to kind of grade our capabilities. We took those 32 core capabilities and kind of blended them together, try to make it a little bit easier for everyone to understand. Ask everyone to kind of rank it from 1 to 5 or not applicable if they weren't really familiar with the area. Go ahead to the next slide. So what we did is those that kind of rated these areas a 1 or a 2, unacceptable or needs improvement. This is how they kind of ranked in our capabilities. These are kind of what we would consider needing to improve on our focus areas. And next. And these were areas that we focused on or that we were doing rather well, ranked a 4 or a 5. We've added those together. So our EMS, law enforcement, our public information and warning, fire management, public health, we're doing fairly well in those areas. But we seem to do those pretty routinely. During that survey, we asked them to give us some ideas on these 6 areas: planning, equipment, exercises, organizational structure, needs or changes, training opportunities, and then work on building that multi-year schedule. As far as our planning needs, there's things we have to do to fulfill grant requirements. Public Health has 5 plans that they have to maintain annually to review and actually show that they've been read, looked at, updated. Emergency management, we've got our emergency operation plan and a few other plans that we've been working on, communications plan and sheltering plan. Our sheltering plan kind of got put on hold because we're waiting on the state to develop their plan. They decided to change it up earlier this year, so we're kind of in a holding pattern to see what they're going to do. But those are the plans we're trying to work towards to improve our preparedness. As far as organizational structure, element changes, we've had a lot of retirements between public services, DSS, health department, IT, county manager passing away, been here a long time. So the absence of that, and a lot of things he was working on. The budget, we're going through it, and then grant opportunities. We've got a lot of grants out there that we're trying to pursue and try to save the county some money. If it's floating out there, we're going to try to grab it up. Next slide. As far as equipment goes, these are some of the equipment elements that we've identified that are needed or going to be planned for. As far as backup power at the health department for cold storage, EOC backup power, finishing radios out, Most of the radios, or a lot of the radios in the county are going to be paperweights in 2025 due to some software changes, trying to create a more secure network. We've kind of taken that, been proactive in replacing radios as we go, and we're trying to replace a few more before that 2025. We've replaced some vehicles. We're looking at trying to take care of some of our emergency management equipment, generator, load testing our generators, and then tires. Just trailers sitting out. Don't get a whole lot of road miles, which is good because we're not needing them, but they eventually do dry rot, and we've got to look into it. The 13 tires at the bottom, we actually just replaced those last week through a state grant. As far as training goes, anybody in emergency services has got to have some sort of continuing education. If you hold multiple certificates, you've got to get even more hours. We've got Ellendale offering their firefighter series, trying to get some more certified firefighters. EM Western Branch, they're doing a training week, which is actually in Statesville. Normally they do that in Asheville or even further, so that's a good opportunity for us. And then CVCC is constantly updating their schedule for us. During the survey, requested training, we've got a lot of requested training here. Some of it we've already tried to work on. Thomas has done really good with the sheltering. We're trying to get a quarterly thing going, just so DSS has an idea of what their capabilities are, and just keep that relationship built. And then some various others, trying to get input of community, first responders, seeing what they want and what we can do for them. As far as exercises go, emergency management has to participate in 3 exercises every year. We actually just finished up Safe Schools exercise, a tornado exercise at Ellendale Elementary into last month, and that was able to get our 3rd exercise. I think it went really well. It was a good learning opportunity for the schools. So just trying to build these exercises, kind of plan them out in advance to where if more people wanted to participate, they could see them on that schedule and, you know, have an interest in going or attending. Next slide. So now this kind of brings us to our preparedness priorities. We'd like to try to get you guys' input as far as what you are interested in, what you'd like to see us try to accomplish. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Throughout the epidemiology team, the LAPC, and the fire chiefs, these are the 4 core capabilities that we've looked at that we think we could improve on and we'd like to work on. And that's the mass care services, which is sheltering. The November flooding kind of showed some shortfalls there that we'd like to address and get better and be better at that. Just overall coordination, communication, and then fire management and suppression. Fire chiefs are always trying to improve that area and build their capabilities there. And then we'll take these preparedness priorities, build our multi-year schedule, and that schedule is pretty much just going to be a living document where we can add training, exercises, any of the above. Go ahead, go to the next one. And that's kind of what it'd look like. So we'll try to keep that in everybody's hands where they can see what trainings are coming up, who's hosting the training, and just be able to communicate and allow people to participate if they want to. And then that's pretty much it. We're going to work on just coordinating. If you've got anything you want to add on preparedness priorities, or if you've got any questions.
Good job.
A lot of info.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next situational report, this is just some renovations that we are either currently doing or gonna do. So the storage building, we purchased a large large storage unit that is, it has climate control where we have heat and air so that we can compartmentalize our to-go kits and stuff like that so that we don't have to keep them in the health department and take up space. It looks wonderful. We just had the sidewalk poured last week, and so we are excited about that. So that one's completely done. Our conference room, we are updating it. We're looking at a new IT for the building so that it's going to be up to date with, so that if you have to Zoom, it has those capabilities. Lots of other entities are using our conference room, and so this is going to allow for that as well for the community. Our lab area, we're increasing our lab where we actually do patient care, and so we're also making a checkout window just so that we can catch some of those people to make their appointments and for their payment before they leave the building. So that's almost ready. We're updating our electronic sign to make it larger because as you go through on our road, it's hard to read our sign. And so the new sign that was put out the services building, you can read it very well. And so we looked into that and we're getting ready to do that. We're wanting to do a covered entryway to the health department because right now there's nowhere for anybody to stand as they're waiting to get in the health department. Lots of times you'll see them try to get under that little tiny, I call it just a little awning, but it's really not, if it's raining or something like that. So we're trying to think of a way that if we had to do surveillance and pre-screening before they come in the building, that there's an area there that would be covered for them to get out of the weather. In environmental health, we actually purchased an e-file system, and we started scanning last week. We think we'll move pretty quick through this and clean out those old files, and so those will be housed in the e-file cabinet. Excited about that, and that we've also that would free up some space for the new employees that were hired in environmental health. The next thing that we're going to go through, and I'm going to go through this really, really quick. You've all had your initial orientation training to your position on our board, but we have to do this annually. And so we put together a packet earlier for you to review, and this just goes over operating procedures, our policy and procedures manuals. We'll be going through those as a team in the health department March through May, and any changes that are made will need to be brought to you for signature prior to our 2024 year. The health director's job description, it has to be evaluated annually, and it was just updated due to the probationary status going to permanent. So we'll do that again right before the end of the year. So what I would like for you to do is review the notebook that was given, and then included in your packet was two signature pages that you'll need to either initial or sign and date, and then the clerk will hand those back to us, and we'll keep those in our personnel files for accreditation purposes. The next thing that is in your packet is our fees. We have to look at our fees annually and then present them to our board. And so each department met and went over their fees, and due to all the increases that we see with inflation, those were given to you, and the fees that we're wanting to increase are in red. So environmental health worked hard on what needed to be increased, and they did like a comparison for the other counties. And we're still lower than the state says we should be in our fees for that. The last thing I'd like to talk about is what's coming. Medicaid expansion, that bill is moving quickly. And I put 600,000 recipients because that's the number they gave us a couple weeks ago, but last week I saw where they're actually looking at more like 900,000 recipients if the Medicaid expansion goes through. And so that will give more citizens coverage. So Tobacco 21, there's a push for that, going from 18 to 21. There's also a House Bill 108, and that's the state giving the health department more communicable disease funds so that we can have an easier access to funds for surveillance. There's over 80 communicable diseases that we have to investigate and submit to the state. And then also the ending of the public health emergency, that's coming up, and so that's gonna be a lot of funding that's coming to citizens that will go away. And that's all I have. Any questions on any of that? I know that's a lot of information.
Really, one thing I'd say on the fee and the environmental health fees, don't get it, don't worry, it's not a bad thing. I've had conversations with both Bert and John, well, I mean Bert primarily. You know, and I pay septic, you know, I turned in three perk tests, perk applications this past week. You know, so I'm very familiar with those fees. But in comparison to neighboring counties, we are still, if anything, we're still low. You know, and I actually told, I told Bert, I said, we've got to go up. Because, you know, it doesn't make sense for us to, because I mean, that's a service that, you know, that's not benefiting the masses. That's not benefiting every citizen if somebody pulls a septic permit for their own house, you know? And just to give, you know, to tell you the kind of people that are working in there, you know, Bert's like, yeah, but I don't want it to not be affordable. I don't want it to be too I don't want people to have to not, you know, I don't want them to not be that, you know, I'm like, I get it, man, but still, you know, you guys gotta pay the bills, so, you know, if anything, you know, and this wasn't, well, I guess it is because I'm a commissioner, but if anything, I was trying to talk him in, you know, trying to talk those guys into making them higher than we've even gone to. Just because what they do for $300, you know, they have to have, they have to have a degree, they have to be state licensed, not to mention the time, and, you know, typically they go to the site twice.
And some of the sites are very heavily
Some sites are very,
wooded and-
yeah, you know, and not, you know, but I mean, by the time you break down their time, you know, I mean, there's, these fees are very, very reasonable, even with increases. And I don't know about all the rest of it, but I do know about environmental health.
All right, in regards to the fees, we need to vote on those. So do I have a motion to
Mr.
accept?
Chairman, I make a motion that we increase the fees for the 2023 fee approvals as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
I need to ask a question, okay? How are we getting that information out, and what can we do about mental health? Even though your survey said one thing, I have to totally disagree with it, and not because of what it said. Well, I disagree with what it said, and mainly because with going through COVID and going through some other things with the amount of substance abuse that we have, would you not think, and I know that's the only replies you got back, but do you not think that the mental health is much greater than what the numbers showed?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay,
And
all
I
right.
think it's definitely the population that actually did that survey. You know, we put the survey out wherever we could. We handed paper copies out. A lot of people, just like Josh said, he said, you know, they don't want to do that, that process of going through and answering questions, but those actually give us the data we need to be able to provide the services and ask the state for funds to provide services. But I'm excited about the LCSW that's coming to our behavioral health clinic. So, you know, that's what we need is more providers in our community serving that population, because it is a heavy need. I think we're going to start seeing even more.
I think we're gonna see more. I agree, 100%. And, you know, when we continue to talk about the opioids and all that, you know, we can talk about all we want to, but the services are so tremendous. I don't see how, and not many of them are paid for
Right.
by insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, and people of low income, if they're not, if they just don't have the money, they're just left behind, the same as people with mental health. And somehow or another, we've got to get the information out, and I hope the utilization of this money that we get each year that we will be getting, I hope that will go through the treatment and education to these people of what they need so that they can live a more, well, better and more productive life. Because they ain't ever gonna get that high like they got the first time.
Right.
Ain't gonna happen.
The Medicaid expansion will also assist with that as well, because mental health is in that.
Yes, it's a big deal in that this time, and I think that's gonna make a tremendous difference. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, me too.
Because some of our lower income people will, you know, but we gotta get the word out.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. And, but I mean, I appreciate the information, but I just wanted your opinion about that. Because I think it's vitally important.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Senior Center, Christy Hunt, Director, and the Mayor, Mr. Holloman.
Good evening. Are you ready for a nap now? I'm actually going to go ahead and turn this over to our dear mayor to let him present about the senior Tar Heel legislator, the priorities. I think we have a link to that. As you can, well, I will tell this really fast. Our senior center really benefits from this. Right now, we do get a general purpose grant of $4,901. And our home and community care block grant is $84,247 plus a local match of $9,361. That allows us $93,608 for our senior center operations. And what Mr. Holloman's going to talk about is trying to get this money increased so that we could possibly provide better opportunities to help our seniors. So if you want to come and talk to that, I'll let you have it.
Thank you for listening to this. Real quickly, I am the delegate for the senior Tar Heel legislators in North Carolina for Alexander County. And what we are doing is we're going to Raleigh this month to try to present those 5 priorities that you see there and hope to get more money for senior centers and for Ombudsman number 4 down there. You know, my sister Louise is in Taylorsville House, and she has dementia, of course. And what that person does is if they advocate, they can't really legislate or change any rules, but if a family or a resident has a complaint, they certainly can listen to that. And so you know that a lot of this comes through Western Piedmont Council of Governments, through the Area Agency on Aging. And we meet with them as well as meeting with Christy at the Senior Center. So just wanted to let you know that I am that person for Alexander County, and we're looking for an alternate delegate also. So if you have any ideas about who should serve with these people, please let us know. So is that kind of clear? And I just wanted to, one more thing, from Western Piedmont, your park is featured on the front page, one of the music events. And so we're real proud that Western Piedmont has featured that in their comprehensive economic development strategy. So you might want to look that over also. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we appreciate everything you do for us, Mayor Holloman, and hopefully we'll get some more money there. Okay, so now we're gonna look at the population growth for our seniors. Gary Herman actually helped me get these numbers, so I appreciate that. If you look at the ages, the population age 65 and older, it has increased from 15.3% in 2010 to 20.6% in 2021. Our numbers have grown. We have a lot of people that really want to come to Alexander County to retire, and that is amazing. And we are seeing more and more people at our center because of that. So, of course, as we increase in seniors to provide for, we're going to need more money. So hopefully he can help us with that. And the population there, the age is 65 and older. We could not find anything that was actually 60 and older. So that is the age that you really need to be to come to our senior center, is 60 and older. We actually have another program through AARP, so if you join AARP, you can be 50 and older and come, or married to somebody 60 and older, and anybody, any age can come for help for Medicare. Okay, our activities. We have added a bunch of new classes. We are having, of course, our usual bingo and birthday lunches are thriving. I think we have something like 50 more signed up for bingo this Wednesday. Our birthday lunches are usually between 40 and 50 every single month. They're doing great. We are preparing for our senior celebration, which last year I do believe we had over 100 people at. So it's going to be, it's great. It's wonderful. I love seeing these people come out. Hidden Eye Art Center is going to come out and teach a ceramics class. Senior Center has decided to use our grant money to provide this for our seniors completely free of charge. They need these opportunities and they're fun. And we're having a gardening class that's coming up, smartphone class, so that's always a good thing. Currently, Western Piedmont Council of Governments is coming and teaching A Matter of Balance every Friday. That has been very popular, and our seniors are really liking that. Now, if you see the picture there of our music jam, this is something that's been around the Senior Center for a very long time. It is very popular, and our numbers are finally starting to increase again. We're seeing a lot more people. I think we had 29 today to come. So that is always fun. You can come and you can play with them if you like, or you can come and sit and listen to them. It's a great group. Okay, and this is something that our seniors have asked me for ever since we reopened. They are ready to go places again, and we are very excited to help them do that. So we are offering the overnight trips, which is through Diamond Tours. They're a great bus company that will take our seniors, and we're going to have some really good trips. The first one will be August 14th through the 18th to Nashville, Tennessee. Lots of good shows to be seen there, museums, lots of fun. Grand Ole Opry. The second trip will be on December 4th through the 8th to Amelia Island, St. Augustine, and Jacksonville, Florida. And the seniors have already signed up. We've had some that have signed up for both trips. So very, very excited about that. The day trips are coming up, and you can see we have a lot of good places we're going to go to. So they always enjoy those. I think my favorite is the zoo. Just to watch them have so much fun. They get on their scooters because they usually rent the scooters for the day because it's a lot of walking.
Yes, it is.
And they usually go off without me and just leave me standing there. So I had to turn one lady's speed down once, and that was so much fun because she really was taking off without me. Okay, so next up we have our Shred-a-thon event this coming Friday. It is from 10 to 1. So if anybody has any documents they want to shred, then that is great. Please come out and do that. Scams are something that are unfortunately haunting our seniors. It's really bad right now. My assistant director had actually saw someone at Food Line, and this lady was purchasing a bunch of gift cards. And so the cashier was kind of asking, "What you doing?" And she said, "Oh, my accounts have all been hacked into, and this is the only way that they told me I can get my money back." And so Vicki did try to talk to her and explain to her that is a scam, and we really want you to report this. Micah has actually sent me one recently that is part of our, it is smart TV scam. I don't know if you all have heard about this one. This one is fairly new, but it's hitting them. When you go to log on to one of your streaming services, Hulu, Netflix, one of those, instead of actually being able to log in, a number is popping up on the screen and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're having trouble accessing this right now. Please call this number." It's a scam. They get their information, just pay us $200, whatever it is, and we will fix this. It's all a scam in order to get their banking information. Sheriff Chad Pennell is going to come to our next birthday lunch on the 15th, and he will be speaking to our seniors. I preach this every time I get up and talk to them, every time. All these scams are just horrible, and I just really do wish that we could have a better way of putting this out there and informing everyone, not just the seniors, but everyone about these scams. They're really awful. So this is a good way of helping doing this, though. Get rid of those documents you don't need. AARP Tax Service is at our building right now. They are there every Saturday, and they are performing a free tax service for everyone. They prepared tax documents to file their income taxes. We have 36 people scheduled every single Saturday. Our appointments filled up very, very quickly. And we even have added a few just to do drop-off services. So that was very, very popular this year. I've never seen a busier tax season. So if you need more information, just call the Senior Center. Okay, Medicare was pretty decent last year. We had a savings of $593,468, and we had 922 contacts. That's a lot of contacts. Currently, I am the only one at our senior center that is certified to counsel people. We do have 4 volunteers that are scheduled, that are certified to counsel, and they did come in a couple days each time during Medicare season to help me with that. So, and then January, I had 37 contacts and already saved $22,625. So it's a great service. I love when people come talk to me. I never stop working. I was in Walmart. And my family just looks at me like, "Mom, we can't take you anywhere." Because I seen a person that was struggling to pay for their medicines. So, of course, I kind of go up to him, "Do you have Medicare? Just come see me. We'll help you. We can help. There's a lot of things we can do to help." So, okay, next slide, and we can see our participation. I'm going to kind of leave this up there. That way we can kind of compare throughout the year. If you look at January, which is the only one we can really compare with right now, that's up there, we have had an increase of 559 people just from last January to this January. So to me, that is really good, and I've looked at our February numbers, and we're increasing in that too, so we are doing really good on that. I'm loving to see these numbers coming out. We are having more and more people come, and I love it. Okay. Any questions?
It's great to see that our seniors are on the move again.
Oh, they are. They are. They're ready to go. They're just, you know what I always tell y'all, we love to party. And they do love to come out. Something else that I can really tell you about too, we have the, Via Health does come and conduct seminars every single month in our center. We are not having good participation with that. And I think it is because a lot of people are embarrassed of mental health. And they don't want to come to that. It's been a little while back, we had a suicide prevention seminar. And we had a meal with that. And I think we ended up with about 48 people. So I kind of think if anything we can do to get these people pulled in to listen and not feel like, okay, well, I'm just here to hear about the mental health, then maybe that's going to be the way we're going to reach them. Because everybody that shared at that seminar, it was very interesting, and we can tell we actually reach a lot of people. So it was good. We're going to continue to work on those.
Thank you.
Anything?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome. Next, with Alexander County Department of Social Services, Thomas Mitchell.
Good evening. So I do come to you tonight for some sad news. We had a staff member that passed away this morning about 2 a.m. Mary Barlow. So if you will please keep her family in your thoughts and prayers. It was fairly surprising. She got sick last week, went into the hospital Friday, and unfortunately didn't make it. So, but I have a brief update for you from DSS. Our vacancy rate right now is about 7.5%. We have hired 6 new staff from October to present, and we have 7 vacancies at the current time to fill. There's a picture of our new people. Our DSS attorney will start on Monday, and as well as that, we have a Medicaid caseworker that will start, I think Monday as well. So those are our new hires. So as we talked about last time, we do try to do some employee engagement. January was our bingo. We played bingo in January. And then February, of course, Super Bowl. So we had goodies for staff to have for Super Bowl. So Billy talked a little bit about House Bill 76. It did pass on February 16th. We are still waiting on a Senate counterpart, but for those of you that have been following this, it is highly likely that it will pass. I got a notification actually as I was sitting there that the Senate Healthcare Committee will take this up tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And so then they'll have to go through the rules in the Finance Committee. So we are expecting this to pass the Senate probably late March, early April, with full expansion expected late spring. And so what that means for Alexander County is about 2,300 additional folks is what we think will add to the Medicaid rolls here in Alexander County. That is extra work that our staff will have to do. But there is quite a bit of money in there as the bill sits right now for counties to hire additional staff and be paid for 100%. So we'll talk more about that when the bill passes and during our budget discussions and things like that. So Billy also alluded to this, that the public health emergency is ending May 11th. And some of the impacts I think we should talk about that you guys may hear something about is F&S food stamp allotments are being reset. So starting March 1st, what they were qualifying for prior to the pandemic will go back. So just to give you an example, prior to the pandemic, the minimum was $16 a month, and Christy will probably be hearing this from her seniors if she's not already. And so that was increased to $95 a month for the minimum. So those folks that have been getting $95 will now get $16, and actually a good number of them will come off of benefits because of the COLA increase. You know, they did get one of the largest COLA increases in Social Security history, and so that actually will put some folks over the amount to receive even the $16. So with inflation as high as it is, groceries, we all know how much groceries cost right now. It's going to pinch a lot of folks, and so we'll have to see what happens. But folks are going to rely on food banks and that kind of thing to try to make ends meet. Medicaid, the same thing with Medicaid. During the pandemic, we weren't allowed to take people off the rolls that were no longer eligible. We think in Alexander County, there's no real number about this, but I asked Trina to take a look at it. And we think about 800 to 1,000 people are going to come off the Medicaid rolls. We just talked about the 2,300 that's probably getting ready to come on the Medicaid rolls. So there's probably some overlap of the people that are going to come off and the people that are going to come on. So that 2,300, you know, it's probably not exactly one for one, but some that will come off will be eligible when Medicaid expansion comes on. So we'll just have to see how all that shakes out. So Daniel actually talked about this, but we are doing quarterly training for emergency sheltering and with the American Red Cross. This simply is just to keep staff engaged and keep reminding them that working shelters is a part of their job. You know, that is our responsibility at DSS to staff the shelters when one is open, and so we're committed to serving the community when and if we're needed to do that. Playground, I think this slide may be a little outdated. I think the playground's done, but there's our new playground equipment that you can see on the left-hand side, new picnic tables on the right-hand side, and so I think pretty much everything is done except for maybe some mulch. So right now we have 16 children that are free to adopt. I think the last time I stood before you, that number was about 25. We are continuing to have adoption committee meetings every month because that's necessary. We hear about 3 or 4 cases every month. And so we have, we've done 12 adoptions that are official for the year. I still think we're on track to probably do 20 by the time this fiscal year is over. So I think we will have 20 adoptions, which is a record for this county. I think typically we do between 2 and 5. So that's not a typical number for us, but we are just kind of getting through the backlog. We do have 46 children in foster care. That number may be deceptively low, so I just wanted to point out to you guys that I'm not sure yet what our number really should be. We're budgeting and looking at 60 to kind of be Alexander's number, but the reason that number is so low is because the adoptions are so aggressive right now. So that adoption number is happening much quicker than the children coming into foster care. So we have seen an uptick. Actually, we've gained 3 children just last week and this week. So, you know, that children in foster care number is going to fluctuate, but if we keep doing what we're supposed to be doing as far as working the adoptions like they're supposed to, and our attorney is working in court to get those termination of parental rights done, then that number, we really should kind of see the front end and the back end kind of balance out. So we'll just keep watching that foster care number. I really think that if we can stay in the 40s and 50s, that's a fairly good number for this county. Burke is sitting at over 250, almost 200 in Caldwell. I think about 160, 170 in Iredell. But our population is lower, so we should have a lower percentage in foster care. But really, our focus is going to be, especially with the next fiscal year, my push is to work on the front end, because I think all of you can agree that any money you spend on prevention is going to be well worth the dollar that you would save on the foster care side. Not to mention the trauma that happens to the kid and the family and everybody else. So we will be focusing, we're looking at that now, but I'm just going to be real honest. It's a sell to staff that prevention is the key, and looking at how we work with our families differently on the front end. Because when you look at child welfare, about 85 to 88% of everything that comes in as far as a report goes under the neglect bucket. And that's a very wide definition of neglect. And then when you drill into those neglect numbers, a lot of it really boils down to resources. Maybe they don't have enough money for food, or maybe they don't have enough money for clothing. Maybe their family is underemployed or unemployed that kind of causes that. So I think looking at those issues a little closer on the front end is going to help us keep a lower population in foster care. So we'll be talking more about that as the months go along, but I just wanted to kind of share that with you. Next slide. Any questions?
I have one question, well, a couple questions. And I mean, I understand your comments about prevention, and I understand the front end and back end and all that, but I don't think there's any way that we can say there's a target number
No,
And I'm just gonna be frank,
right.
okay? My initial question that I have a couple things written down, is how is CPS going right now? Because with Mr. French being gone, we have assumed the role of county managers. Or, he's the county manager, but we have assumed roles. And we are more involved in things than we have been in the past. Out of necessity, not out of desire.
Right.
And it's not necessarily what we signed up for as county commissioners, because we didn't apply to be managers. But, have there been any issues with taking children into care based on finance? And I would like for you to be honest.
I think that we remove in certain instances where we probably should not have. Does that make sense?
I think that's backwards from several things that I've heard from several sources.
Meaning that we should have removed when we didn't?
Well, no, the situations where children should have been removed because, birth mother was so drugged out that she had to go to the hospital, and there were issues, per people and, and I'm not gonna give you details because I shouldn't do that, but, there should never be, ever, a time that a child's safety
Right.
and well-being is considered, I was sitting here and I'm just listening to your report, and everything's about money, everything's about money,
Right.
everything.
And I agree. that-
And, if there is ever a time, and I'm just gonna say my piece. If there is ever a time that money is the reason that a child can't be taken, that needs to be taken, because, and I'm gonna tell you this, I know that there are regulations as to when and what and how.
Right.
And the regulations, just to let you folks know, children don't even have to have running water in their house. If there's a water source, one bottle of water in a house, that is, you can't, that's okay per the government. Just tell you how, but if there is ever a situation that a child's health and well-being isn't considered way more important than the cost of their care,
Oh, absolutely.
there will be a problem.
Right. We're on the same page. The
there will be a
water-
problem.
Well, like the water situation that you brought up, that's a very good point about prevention. So like you said, if they have a source of water, whether that's a garden hose or whatever, if they have a source of water, technically that would meet the standard. But I think that, as you're saying, we could, and it's not about money savings, it's about redirecting some funds to
And
help
I
our
understand,
families be
and I
more-
understand the
be
prevention.
more stable.
I understand that completely.
And-
I think that's a great thing.
And when we come up with
But when you come up on a situation where there's no question the child, whomever, should be taken from that situation. And I want to say taken because that's not a proper
Removed.
term. Removed from that situation for their safety. Concerns of cost
or irrelevant,
are irrelevant.
exactly. We're saying
And I think, we are all very, very, economically frugal
right.
as a board. But, and I started, I looked at the stuff, and I looked at stuff and I'm going, okay, do we have enough foster homes to take children if they need to be taken? If not, we have to find somewhere else for them to go.
Right.
So be it. And I'm just gonna be honest, if we don't have enough foster families, that's DSS's fault. Period.
Right.
And if we don't have anywhere for those children to go, that's DSS's fault, period.
And we have gained some foster homes. We have 5 that are going through licensing now, that will make it all the way through licensing, and that'll put us about I think 19 or 20 foster homes, which is not enough. You know, we're still working with VIA to get some therapeutic foster homes, because any child that is leveled therapeutic in our county automatically has to go to another county. So, and that's about 25% of the children that we serve. So, you know, that is always a goal, is to get more foster parents, to get some diversity in our foster parent population to match our foster care population. And so Miles is continuing to work on that end and doing MAP classes back to back in order to get folks certified for regular foster homes, because that's what we license in our agency. And then we have to lean on other providers to get some therapeutic foster homes in our community, because we don't have any.
But if you, I mean, and I'm just saying, if there was a situation where one child, two children, three child sibling group, whatever, was taken, you know, had to be removed because, you know, mom and dad are both laid on the floor, you know, OD'd on heroin, talking about the opioid mess.
Right.
Do we have somewhere for them to go? Do we have somewhere for them to go tomorrow?
It depends. It depends on the behaviors of the children, really, is what it boils down to. So if, you know, if they do, the CCA is what they call the report, but if they do that and the child is leveled 2 or 3, we really have a struggle finding placement for some of those children. I'll give you an example. Today we had, actually in the morning, we're going to file to remove 2 autistic children, and they're going to be difficult to place. They were working the phones today to try to find a placement. VIA has been connected in with that, but those leveled placements are very difficult right now, and that's a statewide problem. But Zach will say, you know, I stay on VIA really hard to do their part to help us find the placements, because the bottom line is, if we don't have a placement, they're staying at DSS, and our staff is doing that. And I ask VIA all the time, I'm like, do you have people that can come help us stay in the building with this child or children? And the answer is always no, but I'm always going to ask. I'm always going to advocate to get more support for our staff, because our staff can't work the day shift and the night shift and that be sustainable.
Absolutely.
It's not.
Not to mention, I mean, how traumatizing is it to a child to be taken from their family and have to go sleep at DSS on the couch?
And let's just,
I mean, you know, that's not.
And let's call it what it is. DSS is an illegal placement, you know. So we're automatically out of compliance, but we statutorily don't have any choice. You know, the statute says, me personally, I'm responsible for those kids. So if we remove them from the home and we have no place for them, literally no place for them, we have to bring them back to the agency. And so it is rampant across the state, where this is becoming a larger and larger problem. And now it's not just children, it's also adults. So we're running into adults that don't have placement. And so then you're in the same situation, but you're with an adult. So there really is, I mean, I think that if we had 25 to 28 regular family foster homes, I think that would be fine for our kids that are not leveled. But we need, even a therapeutic foster home, even if we had 5 therapeutic foster homes, and I'm just being honest, that's not going to solve 100% of our problem, because we're always going to have those kids who have extreme behaviors, self-harming, saying they're going to harm other people, and those kids in a regular family setting are extremely hard to place. And so they end up being in institutional type settings, which is not appropriate for children, but that's where they end up. And then with the federal laws of Family First legislation coming down, now you can only stay in a group home for 14 days. And so it's pushing move after move after move. You know, we had a child that Via and my staff talked about every week. We had a virtual meeting every week about this child. And she had 41 different placements. And so now she's with a relative, and we're doing everything we can to hold that together. And sometimes that is money. So we did have to offer the grandmother money because to hold that placement together. And so I think that in situations like that, you know, there's really no budget for that. But we just have to, like you say, we have to do what we can do to make sure that that child is safe. So Commissioner Lell, there's just no easy answer, but I can't stand up here and say that no matter how much recruiting we do, that we will always have a spot for that child. We will always try as hard as we can. We will get every partner that we have on the phone. We will continue to work with VIA and work with our other providers to make sure that we have placements for everybody that we can. But there may be a time when we can't find a placement, and our DSS staff are staying with children. And then sometimes they may end up in a placement that we don't feel good about, and then we end up having to move them. And so every time we move a child, it adds to their trauma. It adds to their trauma story, and we don't want to be part of that. So, and one last point, just to kind of close the loop on some of your concerns. The reason I try to look for a target number of the foster care population for us is just for budgeting purposes. Like, I need to think about because this is just my first year here. When I came here, we had 69 children in care. So, you know, 69 I think is too high because of not working the adoption. So I think that the 69 number is too high. Some of the commissioners got a three-year report, those of you that sit on the management team, for a different purpose. And so I think if you look at that 60 point, that seems to be a decent three-year average for us. And so that's what I need to know for budgeting, because if we budget for 75 children versus 60 children, that's a huge amount of money as far as our budget. So it makes our budget look bigger than it should be. So that's what I use those numbers for, is for budgeting purposes. But again, I don't want anybody to think that we're ever going to leave a child in a dangerous environment just to save money. We will not do that. And if you hear otherwise, please call me. If you know of a case that has happened, I want to know. But I try to watch things as closely as I can. And on my watch, that won't happen.
Anyone else? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be going into closed session, per -143-318-11A, 4, 5, and 6, economic development, contractual, and personnel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Thank you.